Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our briefing on the City of Philadelphia's response to gun violence. This briefing is for press only. If you are not a member of the press, please log out and watch today's live stream on the City of Philadelphia's Facebook page, or tune in to 900 AM or 96.1 FM WURD. Mayor Kenney is not available to join us this afternoon, and so I'll turn it over to Managing Director Tumar Alexander to kick us off. Tumar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Kevin. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Today, we'll start with an overview of our summer programming for children and youth. Last summer, like all of 2021, was challenging for our communities. In our update today, we're excited to share how summer 2022 will be exciting and enriching, full of opportunities for learning and fun for youth of all ages. In a few moments, I'll turn it over to Vanessa Garrett Harley, a familiar face in city government who most recently served as First Deputy Managing Director and who also has served as Acting Managing Director during my brief medical leave of absence. Vanessa, as of Monday, has assumed her new role as Deputy Mayor for the Office of Children and Families. Vanessa will walk you through a presentation regarding our Play It Safe PHL summer programming that will keep children and youth engaged throughout the summer. We know that these type of activities are lifelines for our young people, especially during the warmer months when they are out of school. And we believe that keeping children and youth engaged in dynamic summer experiences will help keep them safe and reduce community violence. That's also why we're continuing to invest in these critical services and activities as laid out in Mayor Jim Kenney's recently released fiscal year 23 budget proposal. Before Vanessa's presentation, I do want to provide two brief updates. Earlier this week, you may have seen the news that federal law enforcement officials announced charges against 14 people in connection with two separate gun trafficking rings that brought about 400 guns from Georgia and South Carolina right here to Philadelphia, contributing to violence in our communities. We're thankful that the U.S. Attorney's Office brought this case against alleged gun traffickers because the flow of guns in our cities has been a major driver of violence over the last few years. On another note, I want to point out that the city's Office of Violence Prevention is now accepting applications for the Targeted Community Investment Grants Program, which we like to call TCIG. These grants range from $1,500 to $50,000, and they support community-based programs and activities focused on violence prevention and intervention. Special consideration will be given to applications that address the needs of young people between the ages of 16 to 24 and young adults aged 25 to 34, as well as those that show a commitment to collaborating with youth communities and other organizations. Applications should be submitted no later than 8 a.m. on May 16th. To learn more about TCIG, email tcig@phila.gov. Again, email address is tcig@phila.gov. Now I'll turn it over to Deputy Mayor Vanessa Garrett Harley to tell us more about summer 22.
Thank you, Managing Director Alexander. I'm pleased to be able to join the Managing Director, Police Commissioner Outlaw, Erica Atwood, and others at this presser today. This is my first week as Deputy Mayor for the Office of Children and Families. In my previous roles as First Deputy Managing Director and more recently as Acting Managing Director, I was actually acutely aware of the importance of providing a safe space for our children and youth in light of the rise of gun violence in this city, with children as both victims and often even perpetrators in certain instances. However, now in my new role, as you can imagine, that issue is even more front and center. Could I have the first slide, please? Thank you. One of my immediate priorities in this new role is to oversee programming for children and youth that the city will offer this summer. So I'm really pleased to be able to join today to sort of outline and spell out some of the wide range of offerings that we plan to have this summer. We call our summer programming Play It Safe for two very good reasons. First, because organized play is vitally important for the development of children and youth, particularly during the summer. And we call it Play It Safe because we need to do everything we can to ensure that organized play activities are in fact safe. This has never been more important as we know that our city is struggling with the epidemic of gun violence that has tragically claimed the lives of far too many children and youth. My team and I are working closely with the police commissioner and her team sharing information on a regular basis. We have convened a summer planning group that coordinates the programs and the plans for enhanced safety at the various sites and centers throughout the city. To that end, I want to be clear. We are working now with the police department to ensure that there will be a police presence in strategic areas in order to support this programming. Nothing is more important than the safety of our children and youth. Now, I'd like to provide an overview of our programming for this summer. Next slide, please. I'm pleased that we're now able to offer this extensive array of programming in person. As you see, just from the 4 programs that you see on our screen, tens of thousands of Philadelphia children will be able to take part in safe and enriching activities, and I'll be giving you further details. Let's start with a look at the programs offered by the Prevention Services Division at the Office of Children and Families. From July through mid-August, the Office of Children and Families out of school time programs offer full-day enrichment at a wide range of providers at schools and at community-based sites. These activities will center around both literacy and career exposure. And of course, our providers are awesome at making these activities fun and engagement. As you see, the full day enrichment hours are from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The Office of Prevention Services will also be partnering with the school district at 23 different schools or sites. In the morning, there will be learning and academic activities. In the afternoon, it'll be enrichment and more fun engagement by out of school time providers. The hours for the afternoon enrichment are from 12:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. And these sites will run Monday through Thursday, and then a full day by our out of school providers on Fridays. The third pillar of the programming by our Prevention Services Division is the Work Ready program, and that's managed by our great partners at the Philadelphia Youth Network, or PYN. This summer, I am particularly pleased to announce that we'll feature over 8,000 paid summer work opportunities. These opportunities are a mix of both in-person and virtual opportunities. We will now turn to summer programming that's going to be offered by the Department of Parks and Recreation, which is another division under the Office of Children and Families. Our rec centers, as you see, there's over 300 neighborhood parks, rec centers, and playgrounds that we will be providing activities all summer long. In order to find out more information about them, you can go to the on the screen at phila.gov/parks-rec-finder. That will give you more detailed information. And at our rec centers, we will be coordinating with the police department to ensure that officers are conducting regular check-ins at the center during operating hours. Also, our public pools are particularly fun and important, particularly on those hot days. They're an essential part of our summer programming. We will be including various programs, including free swim lessons. This programming will run from the end of June through August. And we will also be working with our police department to provide presence at certain pools during operating hours. As part of the ability for us to be able to safely open these pools, we have a number of additional job opportunities available. We are in particular need of lifeguards. We need over 375 lifeguards in order to be able to safely open all of the pools that we have available to us. You must be age 16 or older to qualify for one of these positions. We have upped the salary, which I believe is a really good salary range, from $16 to $18 per hour. In addition, free training and a certification will be provided for those between 16 to 24 years old. For more information, you should certainly go to phila.gov/lifeguards. In addition, we also have another 415 pool maintenance attendant positions. So these are additional positions that are for anyone ages 18 and above. And they will be paying $15 an hour. And these positions will support both custodial duties, maintenance, and also help with some of the crowd management at the pools. So I implore you, if you know anyone who's in need of a job and is interested in either of these positions, please go to our websites and apply. We also want to mention that another service under Philadelphia Parks and Recs, our summer camps, over 110 neighborhood summer day camps will serve children between the ages of 6 and 12. These camps will be held at recreation centers, playgrounds, and parks across the city. Our summer camps will start on July 5th. Play Streets, which is something that I'm always particularly excited about, as I had the opportunity to take advantage of them as a child myself. We have over 300 plus Play Streets, which are city blocks on any block across the city that they have signed up for it. And they not only do you get to play and there's organized activities, but they will receive nutritious meals. We will be ensuring that food is delivered and that all the children are able to be served meals. You can go to phila.gov/food to get additional information once we do all our confirmations. And we're starting our Play Streets a little earlier. They will begin on June 21st. And then also under Parks and Rec will be Camp Philly. Camp Philly is an overnight camp that is a 2-day or 2-night camp that allows experiences in partnership. And we run this in partnership with the YMCA. It's hosted over 2 weeks in August 14th and August 21st. The Free Library of Philadelphia Summer Wonder. We also have a bunch of activities that will be occurring at the Free Library. Just wanted to highlight a few. Summer Wonder encourages reading during the summer. We know reading is fundamental for our young people. It is an in-person programming that will start on June 6th and run until August the 12th. But you can also go online from June 1st to August 31st and receive the same type of programming. To enroll, please go to the website freelibrary.beanstack.org or download the Beanstack Tracker app on your mobile device, and it will help you sign up for this. Free Library will also be offering Science in the Summer. It's a partnership that we do with the Franklin Institute. It will be in addition at 33 libraries this summer. Being a biologist is sort of 4 hours hands-on summer fun, and application type activity is going to be taught by trained educators, and it will take place over the course of 1 or 2 days. Students from 2nd to 6th grade are eligible for the Science in the Summer program. And again, enrollment will be signed up by sort of a lottery registration. That lottery will begin on May 9th and run until May 27th. And you can sign up at scienceinthesummer.com. Next slide, please. Camp Challenge is another program that's going to be run by our free libraries for summer camps and programs. Free library staff will actually train existing camps and summer programs in summer programming, and also provide them with materials. Those virtual or in-person trainings will provide everything from books for students to share. It will provide curriculums, activity trackers, games, prizes, and a myriad of other activities. If you have a summer camp program and you're interested in receiving some of this information or signing up to be part of Camp Challenge, again, please go to the Free Library website. You can sign up from now until April the 30th. DHS, Intensive Prevention Services. DHS is yet another division under the Office of Children and Families. And the Intention Prevention Services supports youth. It's a community-based prevention program that's offered to youth that are between the ages of 10 to 19. And this program is important as we are experiencing the violence that we're experiencing in our city. It supports youth who are either at risk of delinquency or already involved with our juvenile justice system. IPS provides meaningful programming Not only do they provide fun activities and experiences and work on community engagement, but they also provide some core services such as conflict resolution, mentorship, life skills training, amongst other things. They also provide group support and counseling, and they provide field activities, and we also take the young people on cultural trips. So if you know anyone who is in need of perhaps some services, or you see someone that you are trying to prevent from becoming delinquent or getting further involved in the juvenile justice system, this may be an appropriate program for them. DHS is also going to be providing community evening resource centers. The resource centers offer very structured activities. These centers, the 2 community evening resource centers that we have right now, were established to support Philadelphia youth who have come to the attention of the Philadelphia Police Department for curfew violations. However, I want to be clear that our commitment is to serve all young people, and that remains unwavering. So youth who are also looking for a safe space to either relax, unwind, or to be able to have a place to do some positive activities in the evening hours, then they can also get connected to critical services here, and we will accept walk-ins at these sites as well. The hours of these sites are during some of our critical hours, which are 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. The 2 sites are one in the South Division, which is being run by Diversified Community Services, or Dixon House, as many of us refer to the site. And then the other one in Southwest is being run by Community of Compassion Incorporated. The centers are free of charge. And they are located in those neighborhoods where we feel that there is a critical need to serve the youth and families in those particular hours. Currently, these 2 centers are open, but we are hoping to add 2 more centers, hopefully by the end of the summer. Connecting with youth. Wanted to put this slide in to just emphasize the level of collaboration and connection that is taking place between the Philadelphia Police Department, all of the offices over here, the Office of Children and Family that serve youth, as well as our anti-violence work that's being done out of the Managing Director's office under Erica Atwood. And I wanted to just spell out some of the youth activities that the police department have as offerings for young people this summer. The Police Athletic League, or PAL, many of you are familiar with. It provides youth development programs that also offer educational, athletic, and recreational programming, as well as character building type activities. PAL programs are fun, safe, and they are also free. They're open to children between the ages of 6 to 18. They'll be open daily during the summer daytime hours. There may be some extended evening hours. For more information, though, please go to phillypal.org. In addition, the Philadelphia Police Department has a Youth Advisory Commission, or YAC as we call it. It's a youth-led initiative. That commission meets once a month on weekends and also after school hours, and this for youth ages 14 to 18. It works alongside police staff, and these young people kind of serve as liaison between the communities and members of the police department. They certainly help further the commitment that our police department has to community policing, and they will help with bridging some of the gaps that we may see in that area. And then the police also have the Philadelphia Police Explorers Cadet Program. The cadet program introduces older youth and young adults to careers in law enforcement. The goal of the Police Explorer Cadet Program is to try and teach young adults the values needed to succeed in a law enforcement career. So if you know anyone who's interested, or if you yourself are interested, please go to the website ppdexplorers.org / for more information about that. And then the next is actually programming that is being run out of our Managing Director's office under the Office for Criminal Justice and Public Safety. And the city will be relaunching that citywide youth leader networking series this summer. These events focus on bringing together young leaders from across the city to both network, collaborate, sort of get together, fellowship, break bread. These young leaders come from all sectors of various types of work and are encouraged to attend and bring other young leaders with them. We are interested in their ideas and what they think may, the type of activities they would like to see and what might help them as we try and work together to face the challenges that are facing us this summer for young people. A large part of the summer planning that we do over here is the summer meals. Meals are part of full-day summer programs at parks and recreation camps. And they're also being run out of the Office of Children and Families out of school time summer providers locations. We want to make sure that all of our young people stay healthy, in addition to safe. The free summer meals will also be provided, as I said before, at all Play Street blocks. You can apply to be a volunteer or a Play Street supervisor if you're interested in doing that on the block that you live on. For more information, please go to phila.gov/programs/Play Streets/. And for a list of places where you can get summer meals or other food resources, please go to phila.gov/food. And you can search by address, and we'll tell you various sites that you can go to in your area to be able to either get food or food opportunities for other young people in the area. Lastly, again, remember our motto this summer is play it safe. PHL, we want all of our young people to have an enriching, enhancing, fun, but also opportunity to learn, and most of all, be healthy and safe throughout the summer. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to Police Commissioner Outlaw.
Commissioner Outlaw, you're on mute.
I said so many profound things. Sorry about that. I just want to, before I get started, I know there's a lot of questions about what's going on in New York and the Philadelphia Police Department's involvement in that investigation. It's important to note that we continue to monitor the situation around yesterday's horrible subway attack in Brooklyn, New York. We know that a U-Haul vehicle operated by the person involved was rented a day before the attack from a facility here in Philadelphia. And as such, our personnel are assisting the New York Police Department and FBI investigators in as many ways as we can, however they need us, as the search continues for the shooter. And I'm recognizing that you probably have many questions for us around the status of the investigation, but as an assisting agency, we have to continue to defer all of the questions around yesterday's event to the FBI and the NYPD. As far as the rest of my remarks, I'll keep them very brief because we have a lot to get through today. As mentioned by the Deputy Mayor, as relates to summer planning, PPD is going to be front and center when it comes to providing safe havens where our kids can learn and engage in positive environments. In addition to the programs that Deputy Mayor Garrett Hartley mentioned earlier, all of our city police districts will be very involved in bringing summer programming to our youth. Lastly, before I turn this over to Deputy Commissioner Joel Dales, who's our Deputy Commissioner of Patrol, I'd like to acknowledge that this week is National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, where we are recognizing our amazing and dedicated PPD dispatchers who work around the clock to keep our communities and our officers safe. I've said this multiple times, they are truly the first of the first responders, and we thank them today, this week, and every day for their selfless service and being the calm in the middle of all of our storms. I'd now like to turn this over to Deputy Commissioner Joel Dales, who's our Deputy Commissioner of Patrol Operations, to discuss what we're seeing in our pinpoint grids, and then he'd be followed by Deputy Commissioner Ben Nash, Deputy Commissioner of Investigations, who will provide a brief update on a number of cases that we wish to highlight for this week. DC Dales.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can you pull up the slides, please? Can you make it a little larger? Can you make it a little larger? Okay, I will start with the citywide homicide and shooting victim stats. Looking at the top of the chart, year to date as of April 10th of this year, Philadelphia had 129 homicides and 561 shooting victims. In comparison to last year, homicides are down 7%, 129 this year versus 138 last year. And shooting victims are up 1%, 561 this year versus 555 last year. And looking at the bottom left of the chart, it shows the motives for the homicides. Again, the top three: arguments, drugs, and domestic. And also want to note that we are maintaining that close range in reference to clearance rates. We're still at 50%. Next slide, please. All right, in this line graph, the blue line represents homicides and the orange line represents shooting victims in the pinpoint grids. If you look at the right side of the graph, you will see that as of April 10th, homicides are up 27% and shooting victims are down 13% in the pinpoint grids when comparing 2022 year to date total with 2021. As you can see, we are continuing to see a downward trend in both homicides and shooting victims in the pinpoint grids. In reference to the shooting victims, if you look at the left side of the graph, it shows that the shooting victim percentages, which again is the orange line, significantly dropped from the week of January 3rd through the week of January 17th and stayed relatively flat from the week of January 24th through the week of February 28th. During the week of March 7th, the shooting started declining and continued to decline through the week of April 4th. In reference to the homicides, if you look at the right side of the graph, it shows a steady decline from the week of March 21st through the week of April 4th. Next slide, please. This slide shows the total VUF arrest year to date for 2022 from January 1st to April 10th. So far this year, we have made 638 VUF arrests. This time last year, we had 949 VUF arrests and 425 VUF arrests in 2020. Which shows an increase in VUF arrests by 50% when comparing 2022 year-to-date total with 2020, and a decrease in VUF arrests by 33% when comparing 2022 year-to-date total with 2021. Next slide, please. As of April 11th, 1,600 crime guns were seized in our city. From January to March of this year, we actually seized 1,449 crime guns, which is an average of 483 guns seized a month. Next slide, please. And lastly, in reference to the privately made firearms, also known as ghost guns, that were seized in our city year to date as of April 11th, we are now at 134, which is more than the total number of ghost guns recovered by the end of 2018 and 2019 combined. And with that, I will now turn it over to Deputy Commissioner Ben Nash, who is the Deputy Commissioner of Investigations, and he will speak about cases we wish to highlight.
Thank you, Deputy Dales. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'll be providing a homicide arrest updates as I normally do during these press conferences. And since our last press conference, police arrested 9 individuals wanted for committing homicides. I'll be featuring fugitives currently wanted for recent homicides and finally be highlighting 2 recent carjacking arrests. If you can start the slideshow, the following slides are individuals recently arrested for homicides. I will be listing the incidents chronologically by the date of occurrence, from the earliest to the most recent, starting with an incident that occurred in 2011. That's a photo of Ramarvin, Canada. And on April 7th, 33-year-old Ramarvin Canada, was arrested in Delaware by our homicide fugitive squad, along with the FBI task force. He was wanted for the homicide of 22-year-old Kristen Freeman. The incident occurred on July 30th of 2011 on the 100 block of East Garfield Street. This case was originally cleared with the arrest of Chad Reynolds on September 23rd of 2011. Then in November of 2019, Michael Blackston and Ramarvin Canada were indicted for murder and related offenses in reference to the murder of Miss Freeman. Michael Blackston was arrested on November 2nd of 2019, and Canada was placed in fugitive status. The arrest of Michael Blackston in 2019 also cleared the murder of 50-year-old Kevin Drinks that occurred on May 22nd of 2018. This case is an outstanding example of how our dedicated investigators from homicide never stop working cases. The next slide is a photo of Leon Harris. And on April the 8th, 48-year-old Leon Harris was formally charged for the murder of his mother, 62-year-old Victoria Harris. The incident occurred July 17th of 2018 on the 2700 block of Ruby Terrace. Next is Brian Martinez. On April the 4th, 24-year-old Brian Martinez was arrested for the murder of 25-year-old Justin Arquinzoni and a second shooting victim who survived. The incident occurred on July 4th, 2021 on the 3300 block of H Street. This case was previously cleared with the arrest of Carmelo Ocasio on November the 1st of 2021. Next is Eric Graham. On April 11th, 35-year-old Eric Graham was arrested for the shooting murder of 43-year-old Rashida Palmer. The incident occurred on November the 9th, 2021 on the 3600 block of North 21st Street. Next is Kamira Marshall. On April 7th, 32-year-old Kamira Marshall was arrested for the murder of 33-year-old Jonathan Grimes. The incident occurred on January the 1st, 2022 on the 100 block of East Luray. I previously spoke about Ms. Marshall being wanted in a press conference back on March the 2nd. Case was previously cleared with the arrest of Davon Hunt on March 9th, and that arrest was announced during our press conference on March 16th. Bryce Shear Giles remains wanted for this homicide. Next is Nazir Sims, and on April 1st, 24-year-old Nazir Sims, whom I spoke about being wanted during our last press conference, was arrested for the murder of 21-year-old Imad Selaman. The incident occurred on February the 7th of this year on the 5900 block of Bennington Street. Case was previously cleared with the arrest of Dacia Sims on March 7th, which I announced during our press conference on March 16th. Next is Quadir Dickens, and on April 8th, 17-year-old Quadir Dickens was arrested for homicide of 30-year-old Stephen Hostin, who shot and killed while walking down the street carrying his 1-year-old niece. The incident occurred on March 15th on the 4900 block of Hawthorne Street. Next is Jamel Taylor. On April 5th, 30-year-old Jamel Taylor was arrested for the homicide of 34-year-old Grant Miles. The incident occurred on April the 4th on the 4800 block of Frankfurt Avenue. Mr. Taylor was apprehended by police shortly after that murder. Next is Gary Taylor. On April 10th, 17-year-old Gary Taylor was arrested for the shooting murder of 18-year-old Steve Green. Incident occurred on April 9th on the 1900 block of North 60th Street. Next, I'm going to feature several individuals who are wanted for homicides. The first is a wanted photo of Jameer Mickens. 23-year-old Jameer Mickens is wanted for the homicide of 24-year-old Andrew Rodriguez Rivera. That incident occurred on February the 28th of this year, 2022, on the 200 block of West Lehigh Avenue. The arrest warrant was obtained on March 31st of this year. Next is Raymond Harkin. 32-year-old Raymond Harkin is wanted for the shooting murder of 26-year-old Khalil Harris. Incident occurred on March 19th on the 1100 block of North 41st Street. The arrest warrant was also obtained on March 31st. And next is Ryan Matthew. 28-year-old Ryan Matthew is wanted for the murder of 33-year-old Eric Sampson, who was shot multiple times. The incident occurred on March 25th of this year on the 3500 block of Kensington Avenue. The arrest warrant was obtained just this past week on April the 7th. If anyone has any information pertaining to these suspects' whereabouts, we urge you to please call our homicide unit at 215-686-3334, or as always, call our tip line 215-686-TIPS. That's 686-8477. And finally, I'll finish up with a couple of recent carjacking arrests. The first incident is from 400 South 45th Street, and on March 30th, on the 400 block of South 45th Street, at approximately 7:53 a.m., the complainant stated that while exiting his vehicle, the offenders approached him, punched him several times, causing him to fall to the ground. While on the ground, the suspects began to kick him in the head and his body. The suspect took his vehicle keys, got into the car and fled. That's the complainant's car. Further investigation led to identifying a 15-year-old male as one of the offenders. The male was arrested on April 1st and was charged with carjacking, aggravated assault, and related offenses. And finally, from the 400 block of East Haines Street on April the 5th at approximately 8:50 a.m., also in the morning, on the 400 block of Haines Street. Complainant was seated in his vehicle, waiting for an Uber passenger. When a male approached the vehicle, opened the driver door, pointed a handgun at the complainant, demanded the complainant get out of the vehicle. The offender got into the complainant's vehicle. The complainant then retrieved his firearm from his waistband and shot at the offender. The offender fled in the complainant's vehicle. And approximately 10 minutes later, while speaking with police, the complainant observed the offender walking on 200 Haines Street, pointed him out to the officers. The male was stopped, and the complainant positively identified him as the male who had stolen his vehicle, point of gun. The offender was identified as a 17-year-old male. And now I'm going to turn it back to the mayor's office. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Nash. We'll now move to Q&A for members of the press. Because of limited time, only one representative from each media outlet is permitted to ask questions. Reporters are asked to limit their questions to 2 or fewer for the first round. And today, given the time and a hard stop of 2 o'clock, we are limiting topics to the questions related to the presentations today. Armando is also available for Spanish interpretation as needed. If you would like to ask a question, please use the raise your hand function under reactions. So with that, I'll move to Kelly Rule of Fox 29. Kelly?
Commissioner Outlaw, I know you can't say much more about the Brooklyn subway shooting suspect, but obviously there's a lot of concerns because of his ties to Philadelphia. So I just wanted to see if you can say anything about, have police had any contact with him? I'm sure you guys have looked at his record at this point. Are you able to say if he's, known to police in this area?
I am not.
Okay. And we were also hearing that a separate storage facility in North Philly was searched in addition to the U-Haul. Are you able to say, if that search led to anything?
I am not. Sorry, Kelly.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. We'll now go to Chris Palmer at the Inquirer. Chris?
Hi, I'll try one more. James himself, the suspect himself on a YouTube video seems to be saying that he was going to stop in Philadelphia on March 22nd on his way to New York, maybe stay in a hotel in New Jersey. Have police done any investigating whether he was in the area at that time or recently?
I appreciate that you guys have to ask the questions, but I really am unable to answer any questions related to this investigation, as it's 1, ongoing, and 2, it is the NYPD and the FBI's investigation.
Thank you. On another topic, this relates sort of to the clearance rates that came up earlier, but we're a few months now into the launch of the shooting investigations group, Commissioner, and I'm just wondering if you can say early on your impression of how things have gone in the launch of that unit and how things are going with it.
Sure, and before I turn it over to DC Nash, I'm pleased to say that I'm happy not only with the fact that we put this group together at the beginning of the year, but they're doing some really, really good work and they're making some strong arrests. And I'm hoping that, again, later on down the road, not only do we kind of eliminate some of the redundancy that we're seeing in some of our suspects being shooting suspects, but also homicide suspects, but also the arrest that we're making for some of these non-fatal shootings to be serving as deterrents. And obviously only time will tell. But DC Nash, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Thanks, Chris. It's a really good question, and it's really pertinent to what's going on. As Deputy Dales indicated, we're seeing a downward trend in our homicide numbers. And while our non-fatal shootings are relatively flat, we're making a lot of progress as a result of the start of our non-fatal shooting group, our shooting investigation group. We call them the SIG unit. They've had some tremendous successes. In the next press conference, I expect I'll be providing some updates on some significant investigations that they've been a part of that have resulted in arrests. I know you asked specifically in terms of clearance rates, and as Deputy Dales reported, the clearance rate on the homicide is up from where we were last year at this time. And I can tell you with on a very positive note that overall our clearance rate on our non-fatal shootings is up significantly from where it was last year at this time. The group started at the very end on the 31st of January, and their success has been really tremendous. Non-fatal shootings, I've often talked about, are very difficult to clear and to bring in for numerous reasons. I'm not going to necessarily get into them, but at this point, we're seeing double-digit increases in where we were on our clearances from non-fatal shootings in the past. So we're on a really positive track, and a lot of credit goes to the incredible detectives. And to the question about what's different, they're just approaching it from really a homicide perspective. They're doing a great job of recovering video, which is really critical in bringing about identification of suspects. And also, they're just getting more to the bottom of cases through really incredible follow-up, relentless follow-up on these investigations. And it's really helping us to solve these. And what we are seeing is that a lot of these are involving, we're seeing a significant number of young individuals that have been responsible as well as victims in these shootings. And we're making some great progress. So thanks for that question.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. We'll now go to Isabel Sanchez of Telemundo 62. Isabel?
Gracias, thank you so much, Armando. Como comenzábamos previamente, el enfoque de mi pregunta es reiterar en español ese statement de la comisionada. I know, vamos a preguntar otra vez, pero mi ángulo es más bien enfocado en qué esfuerzos está realizando la policía localmente para apoyar a la policía de SEPTA, pues como seguimiento de ese ataque en Nueva York para garantizar la protección en las estaciones de metro en nuestra zona.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Isabel. Commissioner, the question is for the benefit of the Spanish-speaking audience for you to repeat, ideally, that in regards to the police incident in New York, that Philadelphia is cooperating with the investigation but cannot advance any information as this is an ongoing investigation. And then the question itself is what efforts locally are being made in order to assist SEPTA police in order to do follow-up and to secure protection for the subway stations in Philadelphia.
Thank you, Isabel, for acknowledging that there's only so much I can say to this, but I will tell you once we receive word what happened in New York yesterday. Our team here was in contact almost immediately with those who are responsible for public safety in SEPTA, and then also Amtrak as well, and other areas, to not only ensure that we were communicating and sharing the information, but to ensure that we were bolstering and stepping up our patrols in those areas. Because again, at that time, and it's still an ongoing investigation, we are not extremely clear on the nexus to the city, but we do know that there has been some nexus to Philadelphia. So we would rather be prepared in order to prevent anything like that from happening here in the city. But it's also even more important for us to ensure that we are assisting with the investigation in any means that we can.
Primero, ante todo, Isabel, quería agradecerte por tomar el detalle de hacer la pregunta que me permite contarles a los miembros que están asistiendo y al público en general que nosotros no podemos hacer comentarios en una investigación que está en curso, pero hemos estado prestando toda nuestra asistencia a la Policía de Nueva York. Hemos estado en contacto con ellos y nuestros equipos desde el principio, desde el día de ayer. Nuestros equipos también están cooperando con Amtrak y con SEPTA y vamos a compartir la información que tengamos, obviamente, cuando haya algún nuevo desarrollo con ustedes. También estamos aumentando el número de nuestras patrullas en la ciudad. Esto es una investigación, como dije, en curso y entendemos que hay un nexo y un vínculo con Filadelfia, pero estamos preparados y estamos pacientemente ver qué se puede hacer aquí para evitar cualquier incidente de esa naturaleza. Muchísimas gracias. Mientras tanto, estamos prestando ayuda.
Thanks, Isabel. You all set?
Yeah, that was all. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll go to Kristen Johansson of KYW. Kristen?
It wasn't unmuted, I apologize. First, do we have any updates on the killings of 13-year-old Trey Thompson, I should say, or 15-year-old Juan Carlos Robles Corona, or any on Sean Toomey, the other 15-year-old?
Mr. Hanson, I can tell you that we're making significant progress in those investigations, that we have really good direction. I'm just not able to share exactly where that investigation is leading us. But I'm hopeful that we'll be having arrests in the not too distant future. And that's where we are with those investigations.
And while I have you, Deputy Commissioner, I was in a preliminary hearing this morning, and basically a witness, it was for a pregnant woman who was shot and killed, and her baby, and she both died obviously in the car. But one of the two suspects' brother was actually in the courtroom, and basically what happened was that she all of a sudden didn't remember anything, couldn't identify. And she said that she kind of alleged, and I'm not specifically talking about this case, but she kind of alleged that the statement was made up by police and that she didn't really sign it, whatever, and it became kind of obvious to the courtroom at the time that there were some issues with maybe intimidation. And I wanted to kind of get from you what efforts are made with the homicide unit and detectives as far as when statements are made, and then what efforts are made for intimidation purposes when they have to testify at a preliminary hearing.
So it's a really good question. As best as we can, when we're taking statements, if we can, we audio and visually tape the information, statements that we're getting from witnesses, so that anyone will have an opportunity down the road to see how those statements were taken without coercion and of free will. We are familiar with situations where individuals have changed their mind about their level of cooperation, which is very discouraging and challenging for us. And at times they often go to the excuse that they were coerced into making a statement. The homicide investigators and all of our investigators that work on shooting investigations, they're incredibly professional and thorough. And that's why the advent of the audio-visual taping on statements is really important these days. And as pertaining to any questions about possible retaliation or intimidation, whenever our investigators are alerted to that, they jump into action and will do anything they can to uncover who's responsible for making any overt or covert types of threats or anything that will interfere with the criminal justice system. And when we can, if we can make an arrest for intimidation, we always will. And it's just very frustrating. The homicide investigators are working so hard to bring justice to the families of these victims. And at any time when we have people that change their stories from what is almost certainly the response based on no worrying about anybody else, and it may harm the future criminal case, it's very frustrating for all of us involved, but it's also unfortunate for the families of the victims. So we do our best to try and make sure that there is ample evidence about how those statements are taken.
Thank you. I do have one more question. This is for Vanessa Garrett Harley. You spoke a lot about the lifeguard training courses, but is the city providing any courses, any training courses itself? Because it does take a few weeks to get certified. And also, can you speak about how much kids are being paid per hour?
Hi, thanks for that question. I'm going to defer to Catherine Odd-Lovell, who's on from Parks and Rec, who can give you more details about the lifeguards.
Hi, yeah, sorry, this is Catherine, Commissioner for Parks and Rec. Can you repeat that again? I heard the second part, just not the first.
The first part was just, as the city, it takes weeks to become a lifeguard, to get certified as a lifeguard. And so is the city offering any courses for these kids? It's April 13th, and where can those kids go to maybe get that training course, and is the training course free?
Sure, yes. The training, all the first individuals have to be screened. So the screening is provided every single day at 5 different locations in the city. Once you're screened, and that means you pass, you can go through a certification process. For young people ages 16 to 24, that certification process is completely free. So they don't have to pay for that. The certification process is being held by our water safety instructors, so by city staff. They are certifying, walking those young people and any applicants through the certification process at those pool locations. All of that can be signed up for online, so people can choose the times when they want to come in and begin their certification process. Some of it is done in person and some of it is done online. But again, that is free for young people ages 16 to 24, and it's completely provided by the city.
And then when is like the last date that they're going to sign up for? Because it does take weeks to become a lifeguard.
Yeah, it actually, the certification process takes a little less time than the actual hiring process through the city. So we do want kids to get anybody, young people, as well as any adults who want to apply. We want them to apply as soon as possible. We are, putting as a soft deadline early May in order to get staffed at a pool for sometime during the beginning of pool season, which will be the 3rd week of June, we hope. But again, we're going to keep hiring so long as people are interested and, fill them in the pool season as they come online. But the sooner the better if we want pools to open on time this summer.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen.
And they can visit phila.gov/lifeguards.
Thanks, Catherine. Next up, we will go to Jillian from 6ABC. Jillian?
Thank you very much. Commissioner Outlaw, I know that you can't speak to details of the investigation, but I'm wondering if you can speak to the residents of Philadelphia and beyond, because I think so many people are disturbed when you see the video and the images coming out of that subway attack. And look, we're a big city, and I think people now really fear, and I think they have for a while, but it's more evident now than ever, that something like that could happen anywhere. So can you talk about the preparedness here in Philadelphia and your message to the residents of Philadelphia today?
Whether we're talking about gun violence here in Philadelphia or in other places, my message would be the same. It's obviously upon us, the police department, to work with our other law enforcement partners to ensure that we are prepared and we plan. We can't plan for things we don't know about, but when we have indicators or indications that things like this are happening, that's when we make sure we are in constant communication, we're sharing information, and we are bolstering and stepping up our visibility in some of these vulnerable areas. So I don't want people to live their lives in fear. I don't want people to say, well, I'm no longer going to take the train, or I'm not going to take a subway, or whatever that is. Just know that we're paying attention. We, the police department, we're paying attention to what's going on around us, and we're ensuring that we have proper resources in place to either be there right there on the spot, or to be there to prevent and deter things like that from happening here in the city of Philadelphia.
And are you able to give any more specifics about how you guys are assisting, or are you not able to discuss that?
No, I'm not. But again, working with the FBI, working with the police department, when I say resources, that could be investigative resources, that can be field resources, whatever it is that they need, because we're an extension of this investigation. By assisting them, we'll make sure that we will provide whatever it is that they ask.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jillian. Next up is Sammy Ciola from WHYY. Sammy?
Hi, this is Sammy Kayola from WHYY. Sorry, I was on mute. I wanted to ask, of the programs that Vanessa listed, how many are new this summer versus what's a returning program? Hello?
I'll try to answer that. Only 3rd day in on the job. I think from my understanding, most of these programs are pretty much the same as last summer. I don't know that my rate of them are really necessarily new programs. But if anyone else is on from OCF that has additional information, please jump in.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Waleska. I'm the Chief of Prevention from the Office of Children and Families. So just piggybacking on what Vanessa said, many of the programs particularly are existing programs. However, based on learnings from, the last summer and even through, the beginning of the pandemic, we have enhanced a lot of them, particularly the programs alongside with the school district, which is, this is the 2nd year where we are having summer camps. So we have academics in the morning, and then we have fun and enrichment activities in the afternoons. So a lot of these programs, although they are recurring, they are based on best practices from the last 2 years.
Okay, thank you. And second question, if we have families who are, afraid for their children's safety this summer, given the gun violence crisis, why should they turn to these programs?
I could start. Hey, Sammy, this is Tumor Alexander, Managing Director. I'll start, and whoever wants to jump in could join. I think for us, this is our sense of trying to provide great programming, like Waleska just mentioned, a mix of academic, a mix of enrichment programming to our young people and to our families. That's why there's significant coordination with our law enforcement officers and PPD and the organizations that run these programs, so we can ensure that these programs are adequately, hopefully safe for the communities. But it's not just the police thing, it's not just the city thing. It's also up for those communities and those parents to assist us. But our kids need activities. Our kids should not live in their houses in fear, stay in their houses throughout the summer or the winter. Quite frankly, we need activities for our young people. Our young people need activities for them to enrich themselves. So we're going to do our best to ensure that these programs are not only enriching for our young people, but also safe for the young people to transverse to and from, and safe for these programs to have. So I want parents to be able to have an ability to say, you know, absolutely, I want to send my kid to the rec center for a swim. Absolutely, I want to send my kid to this program. And, you know, we want to try to build upon these programs and make these programs places where young people continuously want to come to.
You mentioned traversing to and from. Are there special safety measures for that?
Let me defer to Deputy Police Commissioner Dells to talk about the plan, talk about our coverage plan for as it relates to these activities.
Yes, good afternoon. How are you? Yeah, so we are still in the planning phase. We're trying to determine which location is going to be stationary. Of course, the ones that experienced issues in the past will have a stationary beat. We're also going to focus on having roving beats as well to make sure that we can have a safety zone around these locations. So we're still in the planning phase. I'll have more detailed information within the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sammy. Next up, we'll go to Saj Purple Blackwell, Community Radio.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks again for having me. I definitely want to build off of Sammy's question in regards to, especially Commissioner Dales. I know last year that we were saying that we had about, 2 foot patrol officers at each rec center and targeting the pinpoint areas. Will we be at least doing the same, at least having the same, if not more of an upgrade when it comes to patrolling these rec centers?
Yes, we're still going to focus on those rec centers. Like I mentioned, we're going to have stationary beats. We have officers on foot, officers on bikes as well. And we're laying out which ones where we need to have stationary beats. I can't stress that enough. But the other ones that will not have stationary beats will be monitored, and also logs will be signed within those zones. We also going to be reaching out to other agencies to assist us with coverage as well, since there are so many and we have additional play streets added. So we're going to be working with other agencies to assist with coverage. Such as, for example, I'll be reaching out to PHA, to Sheriff's Department. So as a start, we're going to continue seeking additional resources to assist with coverage.
Thank you. Just a follow up before you go on that one is, and are we maybe also considering again, maybe having the, the substations at some of these rec centers, especially the ones that we've had, the uptick in violence?
Substations? Are you talking about mini stations?
Like the mini stations.
We won't have many stations up and running around that takes time. First, we got to establish the building. We have to pay for the building, but there won't be any mini stations set up now.
Thank you. And then my last question overall is in regards to the cameras and the security, because I know that there were some rec centers and spaces that actually did receive more cameras, but how many of our cameras around the city, especially for our playgrounds and recs, are tied into the Delaware Valley Intelligence Center with the real-time crime center? Like where, how many of the cameras in the city are actually tied into the real crime time center?
Majority of cameras are tied into our centers. As a matter of fact, we're working on getting additional cameras installed. I do know that City Council is working on funding additional cameras for some of these rec centers. So within the next few weeks, hopefully we'll have those cameras in place. But I would pass that over to the MDO. Can give you an update on that in reference to the cameras.
Yeah, I think I don't have anything to add to what you just said, Deputy Commissioner. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. So.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sash. We will now go to final question from Alicia Reed, CBS.
Thank you so much for taking my question. I'll be as fast as I can. For Commissioner Outlaw, your comment about being prepared here in Philly, should there be any potential copycats with the current officer shortage that we have? Has any thought been put into outside resources or partner agencies? Are they already on alert and ready to respond should something happen here in Philly?
I can't speak for outside agencies, but again, Alicia, our purpose for communicating and sharing the information that we have with them is to make sure that they are prepared in their respective areas of responsibility. Obviously, I'd be speculating if I talked about whether or not, you know, there's a potential copycat out there. And again, I don't want to, you know, unduly invoke fear in the community. I think it's important for our residents to know that, again, there's communication taking place. We are following very closely the investigation in New York, and we're also doing everything that we can to make sure that we're covered down on our most vulnerable areas here in Philadelphia.
All right, thank you so much. And my last question is for DC Nash. In relation to carjackings, you know, they've been ongoing, but with the program that's in place, has PD noticed a decrease in numbers? And year to date, do we have a total number of carjacking related deaths?
I'm sorry, the last part of your question was carjacking related what?
Related deaths.
Deaths?
Death. People die from.
Yeah, I don't have, I'll have to get back to you with that. I can tell you that there have been a number of carjacking would-be victims that have shot at the individuals that are intent upon taking their cars. And yes, I mean, there's no question that we had at least the two. Well, we had the one up in the Northeast on Afton Street with Mr. Priscilla that was solved with the arrest of Mr. Akubu and the ring that was responsible for many of the carjackings, both in Southwest Philadelphia, especially in Southwest Philadelphia, but throughout the area and also up in the Northeast. You know, to the question about the trends, this past week, unfortunately, we saw a bit of an uptick. Prior to that, we had seen a significant decline in the past month. In fact, what we'd been averaging in the mid-20s for the number of carjackings in a week's period had dropped down into the mid-teens. And then last week, we had an unusually a bit of a bump. We ended up with 30 carjackings for the week. We have seen a great amount of success on the carjackings as a result of our carjacking task force, which works in conjunction with our partners at the FBI and the ATF, utilizing investigative avenues that have been able to identify offenders. We are doing follow-up on every one of the carjackings. And we're seeing, unfortunately, a lot of young individuals, youths, juveniles involved in the carjackings. When we are recovering some of the vehicles operated by individuals, we can't just necessarily charge them with a carjacking unless we have an identification that they're responsible for the carjacking. So we will sometimes make arrests for receiving stolen property, being in possession, unauthorized use of a vehicle, and then we have follow-up information that's needed in order to get them charged eventually with the carjacking. I do have information that so far for this year, the number of deaths related to carjacking victims is actually 3. So I hope that answers your question.
Good, thanks, Alicia. And given that we are now over time, thank you everyone for joining. That concludes today's briefing. We'll reconvene again in 2 weeks. Thank you everyone for joining us.